this is interesting angle. An interesting angle. YouTube is asking me to film this way. I am very excited to be on the first monthly live. I'll be doing this every Monday. Every first Monday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific for 45 minutes. I'll be hopping on live on YouTube and sharing what comes through. That might be a transmission, a channeling from Sirius, and I'll be open to receiving questions. So let's see if this will stay. Sometimes new things can feel really awkward. Okay. Okay. Yes, I'm just gonna take a moment. Oh my god, this is really exciting. New things can be awkward for sure. I don't know. Okay, so I see there's one viewer, so if you can comment so I can see what that's like to see a comment, to make sure I can. Hello, dear. Oh my god, Suzette, you're here! Yay! Oh, Suzette is the inspiration for me hopping on live. Yeah, just knowing that yes. So thank you, Suzette, for following your inspiration. So in order to ignite mine, thanks to Suzette, we're here today. So I'm really excited to show up in this way. And yeah, I'll share a little something that's been, dear Suzette. It's really good to meet you here. So something coming through is like right before I was hopping on this live, I'm like, what's relevant for who's going to be watching? What's most alive? And the term that came through was the death of our old self-perception. So what was being shown to me is that we're kind of like stepping into this new game, this new octave of life. And there's a part of us that wants to bring along all of how we see ourselves and how we perceive ourselves, and like take all those parts and recycle them and make use of all these ways that we see ourselves. And it can feel really heavy to do that. It can feel like that's a lot of work. It can feel like a big burden on the back, and like, oh my God, how are we gonna juggle all this? And so it's more about us being okay with those parts of us being those parts, and allowing that identification with how we used to see ourselves, our self-perception, to die, and to adapt to a new way of seeing ourselves. So, hi, Kiss, I missed your name, you popped up. This is so exciting, there are 5 people, oh my gosh. Yes, Pavel, hello, hi, thank you all for being here. Oh, I'm so grateful. Yay. It's funny when we do new things, it's like there's so many voices that say, oh, just don't do it, just don't do it, just don't do it. And it's really important to follow that inspiration and that spark. And then it just inviting all of you to follow that spark of inspiration, because it always feels like the unknown, and like the mind tries to manage how this unknown will unfold in our life. Like, and the thing about stepping into the unknown and that inspiration is that it doesn't make sense. It's never going to make sense to the mind. And so it's really important that we learn how to speak to our own mind. Hi, Sean. Yay. And so this, I'll share a little bit more about this, then I'll open up for questions, is that, does that make sense? Like, we carry all these parts of us out of love, like the way we see ourselves, and we try to transform the way we see ourselves to show up in the world. Like, hey, I got you, I love you, come into this new way of being. And the thing is that identification of the I am, of how we see ourselves, dies. We actually see ourselves from a broader lens. And then the way we remember ourselves changes. It's like, oh, all those parts of me are okay. They all served a purpose, and I'm not going to identify with that anymore. I'm going to step into this next octave of my being, and it's about seeing ourselves in a new way. So an example for this is exactly how I showed up here today. There were all these old ways of seeing myself that were attacking, and they were like, oh, you weren't professional enough, you didn't do enough, you're not enough, just don't show up, like, who do you think you are? And I had to be like, oh, I know those parts of me, that they speak to me and they operate in that way, and also I know not to identify with it anymore. I am this other version of me that I'm stabilizing in seeing myself as. So from a theatrical perspective, when I was an actress in theater, hello, you look nice, thank you, Ben Hale. So we had to learn how to feel and behave and think as a new character. And as we are adapting into this next octave of way of living, of being in this new way of life, it's almost like we got to get used to seeing ourselves in a new way, if that makes sense. So I'd love to hear where you're from and what this brings up for you. If this brings something up for, if the question pops up, if it triggers something in you, if you're experiencing it, if you're resonating, not resonating, just opening up the chat to see what it's like to be in dialogue with all of you. Let's see if I can see all the chats at the same time. Oh, yes. Okay, I can see. Far away from Germany. Yes, Suzette, you're far away from Germany. So until there are questions, I'll just continue sharing about this. And maybe tune in a little deeper. So as like joining late, glad to be here. Hi, Jana. Hi, Chris. So we are talking about the death of our old self-perception and how to adapt in this new way of perceiving ourselves. So let's see, I think Chris just, okay. Do our old self-perceptions ever die fully? Do they ever die fully? That's a good point. I feel like they become, they change in size and like the memory bank or how much spotlight they have, and our relationship to them changes. So it's like if there's a friend that you used to see every day and you know you do work with them and you play ball with them, and then as you change, your relationship changes, and then they become a memory. And as you cultivate more and more relationships, they become a faint memory. So you might remember them rather than every day, you might start remembering them every week or every month. So these parts of ourselves, Marco, so these parts of ourselves change in how we relate to them. So some of them at some point, you might not even remember that that was a part of you. Like I'll have moments where I'll remember a way I used to be and I'll be like, whoa, that was me. And so there's a holding on to these things because it gives a sense of safety when we are consistently us, even if it's heavy and even if it's burdensome, and even if it's small, we can stay attached to them, even if it feels shrunken, because that gives this sensation of groundedness. I'm grounded. I know who I am. And so there's a benefit to us staying attached to these smaller versions or denser versions of ourselves. And also, as we start identifying with these new umbrella parts, I want licking your nails. I think I'm going to learn how to sift comments. But today I'll just say, bless you. Bless you. So it's like these umbrella parts of us that are like the bigger babushka that why are we afraid to step into these bigger parts of us? Because when we do, there's more responsibility, more impact, you're more interconnected to all that is, and there's more feelings to feel, and there's more subtlety to be embraced. So it's like as we slow down and tap into our truest selves that are this toroidic field that's constantly giving and receiving input and constantly in co-creation with all that is, that can be really overwhelming. That can be really scary to actually embrace all that which we are actually calling in. So seeing that and acknowledging that there are benefits to being attached to these smaller parts that are more dense, and seeing honestly why we're still hesitant to let them die fully, like let them not be identified with us anymore, and the bigger parts of us, because we're learning how to take on that level of power and liberation. Oh, Suzette just asked a question. What is a babushka? In my first language, which is Russian, it means grandmother. Oh, maybe I don't know why in Israel we called those Russian dolls babushkas, but maybe we mistranslated it. It's those dolls that, you know, you open up and it's like inside there's a smaller one, and inside there's a smaller one, inside there's a smaller one. So I don't know how you say it actually in Russian. Matrishka. Oh, I thank you, Suzette. Matrishka, thank you for, well, in a way it's also our grandmother. It's that ancient wise one that is like the bigger, broader version of us that actually it has all the smaller parts within. So it's like Phil Good said something about this. It's really beautiful. Like, never judge or bash or shame the past versions of you, because they all played a part in you becoming this bigger thing. And so as I've been tapping into letting those parts of me die, it's more of like, they don't need to be running my life. They don't need to be in control. They don't have a say in whether I'm going to hop on this live or not. No matter how worthless those parts feel and how much they're judging that I'm not doing enough to be able to be showing up live today and having people witness and interact with me and take time from their day, like, those voices don't have reign over my life, because there's an identification with the bigger part of me that holds all of them. That's like, that's okay that you feel and think all these ways, but you don't have responsibility over all of life right now. Matrushka isn't the kind of wooden doll in a doll in a doll. It isn't that? It isn't that, or is that? Oh, is or isn't, I don't know. Well, I'm referring to the doll, like that's how the experience is like we're born into these timelines, these dense realities. Oh, it is. Okay, Matrushka. Where we're this thing and we're like, oh my God, I feel like I don't belong here. Oh my God, this reality feels weird. Oh, why are people the way they are? And it's like we question reality and we get curious. Oh my God. We question reality and we get curious. And as we get curious and we question reality, it starts dismantling our attachment to that smaller part of us. And we step into the bigger shell. And we're like, whoa, okay, I'm not that. And there are layers to it, like an onion. And so it's actually a gift that we get to do this gradually, because a lot of us have had experiences where we went from this inner child into this inner wounded child into, oh my God, I'm one with creation of all that is. And that is a shock to the psyche. And so a lot of people also have made oaths with themselves to not go back to that infinite potential, because we felt like we mishandled it. We felt that it was scary. We felt like we might be alone forever, because we became all of one with all that is. We felt abandoned by God. We're like, where's God? Where's God when I'm lost in infinite potential forever? And there were a lot of invasions as well into our psyche back then, when we won't get too deep into it today, but there was a form of invasion in those woke spaces into our psyche, into our subconscious. And so now a lot of us are in a process of mending and weaving and making it more graceful, more loving, for us to be able to bridge and mend these smaller parts of ourselves with the bigger doll taking range over our lives and being like, oh, I am that. Like, I am that. I am that holds it all. I am the love that embraces it all. I am the I am that witnesses it all. And in a way, it feels like death, and it's really about being less and less attached to that safety net of I know myself. I know how I am. You might even find that certain languages don't make sense anymore. Like, oh, I always do this. I never do this. Those things don't make sense anymore in a quantum reality where time and space speed up. It's like, am I always like this? Do I always like that? It like shifts. Things shift very quickly. And yeah, I'd like to open up the space of how this is resonating, what this is bringing up for you. And maybe I'll go into a form of a channeling about it. So, from Sirius. So, yeah, how does that resonate for all of you hearing that? Have you had experiences that where you felt like you woke up too quickly? I'm curious. And is there wounding there? Even if you don't type it in the chat, just checking in with yourself now. Like, do you have wounding around you waking up in the dream, feeling abandoned by God, the fear of maybe you'll be alone forever in that infinite potential? That's true. Suzette says, that's true. I've caught myself lately not finishing some sentences when I realize that what I'm saying is, what I'm saying isn't really true for me anymore. Exactly. I love that you just brought that up, Suzette. It feels like the old languaging of relating or like communicating with people, it almost starts feeling like it's a lie. Like I found myself just like letting sentences die. I'm like, yeah, I think that. I'm like, what? I think that? Like, that's not the I am anymore that I currently am. So it almost feels like the mind can feel really unstable because it's like, okay, well, what are you? Like, find another stable home base for you to know yourself. And the knowing of the self becomes less dense. It becomes less physical almost. And it becomes more of your soul resonance that becomes consistent. That's almost like beyond words. It's beyond label. It's beyond defined job title. And I feel the impact of your words. I feel the impact of my words much more than before. Yes, Suzette. Yeah. And so feeling the impact of our words alone can feel intimidating, right? It's like, oh, I better hide out and isolate. And then that, for me, I isolated a lot when I realized the power of my word and that I actually don't know myself. And it felt like a lie to be saying the things I was saying. There was a lot of hibernation necessary where I didn't want to show up as like a fake, like that whole identity was fake. And that isolation is beautiful. And there's a point also where we can get addicted to the isolation and not sharing ourselves with the world and not sharing our voice. It could become addicting where we think, oh, the planet can't handle me. Humanity can't handle me. Like, they're not ready for me. I'm an alien, yeah? Or I'm different, I'm weird. And this protection net serves because we get to really start knowing ourselves and knowing our vibration. And I've noticed with a lot of sensitive souls, like souls that have like a more of a healer aura, souls that are so sensitive they can feel like everything in the room and it's like overwhelming, tend to get addicted to isolation a lot of the time. And so when we see ourselves clearly, like when we let the old self-perception die of like, okay, what if you're not fucked up? There's nothing wrong with you and you're okay. All those smaller versions die off because there's no fixing. There's no problem fixing anymore. There's nothing you need to continuously heal about yourself. The helpless you, Matt Kahn says, turns into the helpful you. And the helpful you is, for many of the souls that I've been encountering, the helpful you is your I am presence. Because when we start showing up, when I'm showing up now on a live and being helpful rather than my helpless self of the morning, I was in this helpless, like, self-attack mode. I'm like, no, that doesn't run my life anymore. And so stepping into helpful, I'm like, you know what? Even if nobody shows up, I'm going to show up. If there's one soul that this is helpful for, that's enough. And that energy, it automatically grounds us in to that I am presence that is part of the whole. and where it's not only about us and being abandoned by God and figuring ourselves out. We don't need to. We're just being helpful. And as soon as we feel like we can be helpful, that allows the unclog of the mind to be a vessel of life and co-creation with everyone, where you don't need to figure it out. You don't need to know all the steps. You just show up and you be you, and you follow that call of inspiration, and that allows light to flow through you, where you become the bigger matrushka that includes all parts of you, and all those parts of you get to play with people as you embrace the purpose that you are. And so there's a point where we gotta crack that shell of the safety, of isolation, of it's okay that your words are powerful, and it's okay that you are powerful, and your sensitivity is part of your helpfulness. Like the level that you see things and that you feel things, rather than being like, oh, I'm a burden to the room. Oh, the people don't like me. It's like, you're that sensitive for a reason, because that's your job to feel that deeply. That's your job to see that clearly. And so the self-attack that can happen, that attachment to that way of being has got to die. So how does this sound, Suzette, hearing that? Like, what does that do for you? Can I block him? Oh, remove? Report? Okay, bye, Marco. Child abuse. How do I'm trying to block him. Hide user on this channel. I think I just was able to hide him. Oh, great. That was easy. Wait, I'm typing for the translation. Okay. Anybody else on here, like, your voice matters, and sometimes also we tend to be passive because it's easier. And I'm just inviting you to get a little uncomfortable. And even if there's something that isn't resonant for you, like, that's also invited. I'm not here to only resonate in the way. I'm here to cultivate co-creative resonance. So I'm really curious about, like, if there's something you also like, I'm like, actually, I think this, or I feel this, to actually see what's coming up for any of you that are viewing. You're welcome to type in the chat box. And if not, I'll continue flowing about this topic. Yeah, let's tune in while Suzette's writing. Something about this topic. And there's a big part of this topic. There's a big reason, you know, we can go into self-bashing of like, well, what's wrong with me? Why am I not being helpful? Why am I not showing up fully if I'm that powerful? And that can actually start playing out as like shrinking us back. So the way I see it, there's always this vulture that's like hovering around us. And as we start tapping into the bigger I am that is helpful, the vulture grows and the thoughts can even attack more. And so there's an attack that equally grows with you expanding. Now, of course, I'm not saying like, this is the way it is in life. Like, this is my experience and this is what I'm sharing and this is what I'm witnessing is true for a lot of people that I cross paths with. So there's an attack that grows with it. And because there's a fear of knowing that the attack is going to grow as we grow, it's like, oh, I just prefer stay with this small attack. I know how to play ball with it. I'll just play with this thing here. And so being aware that the attack might grow as you embrace your bigger presence can actually help you not identify with it, knowing what is going on and calling it out, being like, oh, this is natural that this attack is growing with the expansion that I am. So Suzette it was realization for me that self-centeredness leads to misfortune, even though you think you are a victim. Yeah, I love that, Suzette. Wow. Good calling it out, good naming it in those words. Like when we voice things and be witnessed, it's already 80% of the work. I really believe that. Like as you're sharing those words here in the chat, we're transmuting it together. And was really so that she's saying, Suzette, self-centeredness leads to misfortune, even if we feel like we're a victim. As soon as you do something for the others, the feeling of being an alien is gone. Exactly. I love that you shared that. I'm so excited for more comments. And hi, Lorena. Lauren, I see you. I'm so happy you're here. So yes, yes, yes. I love what you just shared and the words that you expressed it in, Suzette. So it's amazing to see also, I'm sharing my voice, right? And Suzette is sharing a resonance in her voice. The way her voice is sharing this truth that is echoing through her activates something in me. And it's helpful to me, even if I'm playing the part of speaker facilitator. We're actually stepping into leadership in a new way. This is what keeps being shown to me for my part to play in this evolutionary process we're in, is that leadership isn't like we're used to seeing leaders. This is about a co-creative leadership where it's not one person coming in with the all-knowing truth as guru, Buddha, Christ, like, oh, let's all worship them. This is more about us knowing how to work with all of us leading. And the way that works is, and this is connecting to the helpfulness and coming out of victim addiction, is that truth is like a diamond. And so each of us, like, we can go into victim by being like, oh, everybody else is doing it. There's so many spiritual teachers out there. There's so many artists. I'm already old. I didn't even know how to speak. I don't even, I'll just do something I'm better at that I've been doing for years. And the thing is that in order for truth, that frequency of truth to actually be remembered in the human cellular structure, each of us echo truth in our own unique way, and it's the same truth. So it's not about us downloading this one person that knows it all. This is about us all echoing the frequency of truth and yes-anding each other and uplifting each other through us just being ourselves. So I'm just showing up and being me because I love this. I love it. And Suzette offering her echo, like feeling that, yes, the way she worded it. So we're saying the same thing, but our voices are equally valuable. And whether I'm the one on camera or she's the one in the chat, it doesn't really matter. This video is worth nothing. If you guys weren't in the chat, it wouldn't be worth anything. If nobody would ever watch it, it wouldn't be worth anything. And so the helpfulness, that, like Suzette's saying, it's automatically dissolving the voices I had in the morning. I was in complete victim mode. I was in self-attack mode of like, I'm not organized. People are working with me. I'm not showing up in an organized, professional way. Like how, like, and this, it just wanted me to shrink and hide. It was like, you need to shrink and hide and take in this attack. And then I was like, well, actually, I know I could feel what's happening on a collective level. I know that my voice matters and I want to be helpful. I want to be helpful today. I'm going to show up. And there were so many reasons why not to. This helpful energy is dissolving. Thank you, Matt Kahn, for bringing this term up. Helpless to helpful. It almost like the victim is dead. So the old self-perception of me being a worthless victim, that's a waste of life force, it died by me not identifying with it and showing up here. And so I just want to echo what she said, how she said it one more time, is that self-centeredness leads to misfortune. Yeah, and the self-centeredness is from survival. It's like, I need to survive. I need to look at myself straight in the mirror. I need to be honest about who I am. I need to take the old way of navigating life. It leads to misfortune. This new operating system, it's not about it's not about self-obsession. And there is a shadow in the whole healing, therapy, even shadow work, like all of it could lead to self-obsession and being addicted to that smallness, that grounded, oh, it's like, oh, I got like at least 20 more years of work to do. Excuse me. Thank you very much. Like, I cannot be helpful right now. I am still fucked up and I am a hypocrite and I'm really messy. So my number one excuse is I'm messy. I'm imperfect. I'm not professional with banners. I don't have a website. And that's the number one reason why I wouldn't show up. But what I was being guided is that way that I am is creating permission for people to do it imperfectly. And when I shifted that from seeing that as a misfortune into a gift, I get to do it in my authentic way. So when we see our misfortunes or our Achilles heels as our uniqueness, it creates a pathway for others. So because I'm showing up in my imperfection, other people can feel like, you know what? She's doing it messy or like weird or in her own way. Like she doesn't have an opening music to her live video and a premiere, and like, wow, I could do it. And me creating that pathway is very, very, very liberating for me. I get to own the way my soul is now and show up as I am. And so, whatever we perceive as this self obsession of imperfection, we can actually utilize that, be vulnerable about it. And that is actually where we get to resonate and be relatable as co-leaders, co-liberators, co-creators. So we don't have to face that ultimate awakening empowerment and find ourselves alone in the void, feeling abandoned by God. That's kind of like where the screwed up program was kind of infiltrated into our psyche. It's kind of like a program of separation that if we wake up and we're liberated, we'll be alone forever. That's almost like a mental virus that is false. So can we just clear that from our psyche now by acknowledging that we can wake up, we can be in our full power, we can be in our full co-creative authority together without needing to feel isolated, alone, and abandoned. We can actually access those higher frequencies and octaves of life together now as one, and that we're not alone anymore. There's like so much resonance out there. So thank you, Suzette, for that. Hi, I'm late and catching up with Vivian. Hi, Lauren. So Jana, I want to read what Jana is saying. The inner drive to communicate keeps surfacing. I keep wondering why I have this inner drive. Like I have to keep pushing. I have to keep pushing, but still experience fear of being seen and misunderstood. Yeah, so the inner drive to communicate keeps surfacing. I feel like reading it again. The inner drive to communicate keeps surfacing. So you're feeling called to communicate again and again. I keep wondering why I have this inner drive. Like you have to. Like you feel like you have to. Like this push toward it. And then also the voices. You still experience the fear of being seen or misunderstood. Yeah. So this is interesting. I like that you're bringing it up, Shana, because like our voice, the communication, us sharing and co-leading and co-creating, it's really about communication and our relationships. Oh my God, I'm so messy. It's really about our relationships and communication and our voice. And it's almost like the way we're used to communicating with our environment, it turns into these chains, like these chains of energy. This is how I say hello. This is how I say good morning. This is how is your day? And when we shift, like we feel this push of like, I need to communicate my voice, my real voice. That comes along with all that fear that you might lose the people. They might not understand you. And if they don't, you're going to be like, oh my God, like this is me. And actually I'm living in a lie. Like these people actually don't love me. They don't like me. And it might turn into them being my greatest enemy for a moment, right? So it's more like approaching it like, the misunderstood, like being okay with being misunderstood. Like I realized I was addicted to being understood, and I still am a little, is like the fear that, well, I'm just speaking here and allowing my words to flow. The mind keeps telling me like, how are they going to understand you? I don't even plan what I'm saying. My mind doesn't even understand what I'm saying. So we're beginning to learn how to use our voice and our communication for different purposes. And so we were kind of brought up in a system where, well, you got to communicate to be understood. You'll get a star from the teacher. You'll get 100 if she understands your answers. And so it's almost like we were born with this part of our brain that was meant to help us understand how to cut a cucumber. And what happened in a lot of the cultures we grew up in, they were like, that part of your brain that helps you cut a cucumber without slicing your finger, that's you and that's where your value is, and show us that you know how to use that part of your brain. And it's like this small part of our brain, like see it that way, that they super highlighted and were like, that is where your value is, that is where your love awaits. And so we're used to this addiction of being understood by our environment, and just seeing the core of it, of where it's originated from these school systems that domesticated us and made us obedient slaves, basically slaves to a system that we're not even aware that is just a system. It's just a game. It's not all of reality. It's just one reality game that we all consented to, and that it's an infiltration. So that, seeing it for what it is, can actually help us get out of feeding it. It's like, ooh, I see where you come from. Yeah, I need to be misunderstood. Well, my mama inner dragon knows you, sees you, and I give too much of a fuck to have you shut me down. And so I'm willing to be misunderstood by my family. I am willing to be alone for a while. I'm willing to not get love outside me. So it could feel like a crucifixion. Like, in a way, they say that, like, we're coming to a time where we're each like being inner Christed. And so I had these 2 years where I felt like nobody understood me. I had zero. We don't all need to go through it like that. I tend to experience things in an extreme way sometimes, but there's this moment where we're like inner crucified by the unconditional love that we are, that we have no choice other than to be the love that we are, because we see where everything else leads to, and that it's actually not helpful. No matter how much we try to be obedient and understood by others, we see that it's actually not helping them. And this love that we are starts boiling and burning and going beyond all the safety mechanisms of our mind. And there's no choice other than to speak with being okay with not being understood, with being in your divine timing, even if people think you're selfish and not showing up, even if people throw you out of their lives. Like, and people do come around, surprisingly. Like, when we accept ourselves fully, some characters will be like, great, you went through that, now you see that I can be here with you also. I'm just not like you, but I could be here with you now, and I love you. So sometimes people play parts as like the opposing forces that don't understand you and bash you, but they're just playing parts out for us that we're giving power to, and they actually can meet us in higher octaves of the game. I want to reread what Jana said, because I kind of went on a little rant there. Have this inner drive, like, you have to. So I want to say the have to. A lot of the time, Jana, is like, so for example, we could step in. You made this beautiful post the other day, for example. She shared this beautiful poem about weaving. And so that excitement, sometimes for me, when I do something new, I can feel like this higher drive being like, okay, now go full-fledged, be in service, like, do the work. And I realized that that is the old parts of me that I'm letting die too, because I operate not from feeling pressure anymore. I don't let that take over, because when it takes over, everything collapses into the older, smaller, dense versions. My value is that I operate off inspiration and feeling like I'm in divine timing and ease. So if you feel pushed while it's connecting to your service or you being helpful, I'd be curious about where that voice is coming from, and also question if that's the energy you want to allow to trickle into why you're communicating and how you're sharing your voice in the world, if that makes sense. That's a really beautiful thing you brought up in the wording. Oh my God, no sound? Huh, okay, good. There is sound. I have been addicted to be understood too, Lauren's writing, and to be small. And I've seen recently that one of my biggest, this is so messy, and seen recently in biggest prisons have been trying to control how others perceive me, because depending, how do I see the rest? YouTube is going crazy. Oh, I'm happy it's going, because depending, okay, I'm just gonna read. Okay, so Lauren, on that, how I see myself. Oh wait, I want to read the rest of her comment. So on that, that's how I see myself. If someone sees me as selfish, I start to see me as selfish, and I need to separate that. I'm feeling being given the opportunity to learn that. Yeah. Okay, so this is cool what Lorena is bringing up, that she's addicting. It's like a prison that controls her, how people see her. She's like always experiencing how people see her on the outside. And I love that she's wording this. So like if somebody sees her as selfish, she's in that prison of selfishness, and she's being given the opportunity to learn that right now, to allow herself, whoop, I promise I'll become more professional someday. It's really wonky. Right now, to allow people to see me as whatever they want. Yes, in order to see myself depending on that, to see me clearly without their influence. Beautiful. So, Lorena, this is such a beautiful point. Thank you for mentioning, Suzette, that there was no sound. That you're acknowledging that it's a prison is so big. You know, sometimes we think that in order to fix a huge pattern in our life that was running like 90% of our lives, we think we need to do all this work to repair the damage. And the truth is the way you just worded that, and you're witnessing that that's a prison that is running you. That alone will give you enough bravery to switch subtle moments. So the more subtle moments, you're like, you know what? Rather than going into the prison that I'm selfish and evil, I'm actually going to be like, you're okay. And so every time you do the you're okay, you're creating more subconscious snippets in your memory bank. And every snippet, Matt Kahn says this, with a beginning and an end, even if it's short, takes up memory in the subconscious. So it's actually better to have 3 snippets of you repairing a pattern rather than you feeling like you don't care about what people think about you for a whole week without interruption. There's actually, it's easier too. Like every time you feel that you might be imprisoned by how somebody sees you, is like saying, I'm okay. I love myself no matter what. And there might be a point where you face this crucifixion, where you find that right when you're about to fully embody the essence that you are, it might happen. It's pretty intense. I've experienced it, where everybody just plays out all those fears and projections that you've been running from. And if that does happen, just know that it will pass. It's a purge of that energy from running your life. And this might be a dream, it might be a moment, maybe it already happened for you. I have experienced this where 30 people were just playing out all my worst fears that people would see me as, and then it actually happened in the community, and it was a huge purge of me really embracing self-acceptance and self-forgiveness and living free of being validated. And so that actually it catalyzed me embracing my helpfulness and service to the world, because it cleansed that. I was like, oh my God, this is what it leads to if these are the voices I'm afraid of. And there's a moment in Alice in Wonderland movie where she's like, you're just a pack of cards. And it kind of turns into like, oh, you're just a pack of cards. And we can't care what people think about us or feel about us, but it comes from a different place of like, oh, I'd like resonance. I'd like to experience harmony. Where are my people? Where's my soul tribe? And that their soul tribe and resonance are there for you as you purge those who project upon you. And so I'm really excited for you to be on this path of acknowledging these prisons and liberating yourself from it, because there's a lot of power that you're going to discover in these pockets that were prisons once. My therapist. Okay, we're going to close in a minute. I'll just read Suzette's chat. And then my therapist once said ages ago that everyone is trapped in their own film anyway and only perceives that they are capable what they're capable of, so you can have no control over it anyway. Right, like we acknowledging what Suzette just said, like we literally have no control. People's thoughts change every millisecond. And like my sister always says something which is really exciting, because the topic of like the power of not caring is like acknowledging. My sister always said, like, people don't care as much as you think, like you're not such a big deal. And she would say this negatively, like with her Virgo bitchiness, but actually it's really soothing to me. It's like people aren't like sitting and thinking about you, you know, like like most people are so like absorbed with what they're experiencing, and what they're experiencing with creation in the universe is like they're not actually thinking about, like, in our imagination it's like, oh my god, we're so powerful and we have this impact on people. They're like, think of how your own thoughts are changing mostly. So this kind of can also help of like, it's not the power of not caring, the power of seeing that they don't actually really care. And the power of not caring, for those of you who are in the Play Portal membership, know that we're going to dive into this topic this month. So I just want to thank all of you. Oh, Chris just mentioned something. I kind of want to end with a little channeling blessing and just an invite to those who are new to the channel. Chris said, I find purges can be so chaotic. The best solution is to let go of trying to control and understand or make stories about pain or stress. Yeah. Chris is really good at this, is like when we purge like like these hellish realities and realms of how people are going to see us, and like our worst story is like not trying to control the purge. Like just like when we take medicine, for those of us who have experienced taking medicine and like vomiting out the density, is like we actually have purges in our mental body and our emotional body. It just needs to purge out. And Chris has been really amazing at this, and like teaching and paving a way of like, how do we actually experience the purge without controlling it and not creating stories about what's happening, and allowing the pain to move through us and purify us. And I've been through a few scary waves with Chris, so thank you for paving the way in that way. And what I've learned from Chris actually is just the power of being like, it's okay. Like he always shared with me at the beginning when I had really big purges of from my mental body and emotional body, is like, you're okay. You're okay. You're good. You're good. And those simple words, you're okay. You're good. You're okay. You're good. It really helped me just be with the pain and let it not go into stories and create suffering in attempt to control, because we can go into stories of trying to mentally understand what's going on so we can control, so we won't feel the pain. And there's something about just telling our mind, like, you're okay. You're good. You're actually good. And that mantra was so simple. It's not like you're a higher self, blah, 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 you're a light being. It's more like, no, you're okay. You're good. You're good. Like that's what our innocence might be, really simple, what your innocence yearns to hear from you as we let these old self-perceptions die. The things we tell our own hearts can be really simple to support us letting the death of who we thought we were into this I am helpfulness of service, and showing up as these sensitive beings with superpowers. And we're like, what? This is me? What? Like, I can help? What? Like, I can live the life of my dreams now without needing to work on it for years and years? It's like trippy to the mind. And so tuning into like, what are the words that your innocence is thirsty to hear? What does your innocence wish they heard, that inner girl, that inner boy? And speaking those own words, it could be so simple and so nourishing. So thank you to all of you who tuned in. It's meant to be 45 minutes. We're on 48. Just like forever tunes into the video, there are many ways to connect. There is a Play Portal membership. We're having 2 live weekly meets a week, actually. It's a beautiful, intimate group of interactive play where we get to actually integrate these inner knowings with a group, with a pod, and start practicing playing with these versions of us and purging what isn't us as a group, as a mini planet online that creates a nest of support and empowerment for facing the bigger planet. And so if you're curious about that, I'll share details in the description below. And yeah, there are ways to connect with me. If you are interested, that will be via my Linktree. And there are a lot of goodies and things blooming through divine timing. So I'd love to know who this resonated with. I'll be hopping on 11 a.m. Pacific every month on the first Monday of every month. Thank you to the inspiration from Suzette. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I do feel called to just share a little channeling from Sirius. So Sirius is kind of, I feel like that's where my soul is seated from. Like that's where I was like, gonna go to the planet. Like, I remember that very clearly, where they're like, are you sure you're gonna go to that one? And I'm like, yes, I'm gonna go to that one. I'm gonna make it more playful, like, to go through this evolutionary process. And there, I'm not really like a singular soul. It's more of like, I feel like I'm part of a group, like a soul group, and we each have a unique voice, but it's all part of one voice, and there's no body there. And it's a lot of it is actually like the power of our internal imagination and the heart, and it's like in service to find new pathways um, into the heart and mind of like of the being of the human being, to support the bridges into an integrated version of the next octave of life for humanity. So it's like finding ways to bridge and mend and weave in ways that can feel more easeful. So I kind of let go of my singular self and allow myself to melt into this Syrian consciousness. So just tune in. There's so much productivity that can happen the less you do. And acknowledging that the more doingness is a distortion. It's a distortion to think the more you do, the more you get. This is false. This is an old prison that only leads to more doing and more doing and more doing. To step into you becoming requires you actually to do less. As you do less, you download programs that actually support the octave you are embodying. Doing less does not mean that you do not do anything. You choose things. You choose to lay on the ground, on your back, staring at the leaves flickering in the sun without looking at your clock. You choose to hear your favorite piano piece over and over. You choose to put your feet in the water in the river, even if you are just driving by. You choose to become this experience of the next octave. To think you need to do in order to become is false. You choose in order to embody. You choose what would you be experiencing in the next octave of you, and you choose to walk through those gateways. The doing happens naturally through you, just as you walk to the bathroom naturally while focused on releasing. You choose the pathway. You choose the pathway. You don't focus on every step, one step, another step, another step. You know you're going to get to the bathroom. So to this funny metaphor, you know you will get to the next octave of the bigger you I am that is helpful in service and lit with inspiration and seeing yourself clearly. And therefore you choose to take those steps to allow it in. This may seem funny to the mind, and that's okay. Funny to the mind opens up the heart. You are doing amazing, so choose to close your eyes in the middle of the day and hum. Choose to hug a tree longer than you think you could or should. Choose what would you in the next octave be experiencing in the here now if all has already been done. You will realize that there is much less doing and a lot more that is happening. I'm surprised to see people are still here. I love going into that mind. By the way, tomorrow is an important portal day on which you should do less, as Sirius aptly put it. Oh, cool. That's amazing. Suzette's always here to confirm channeling's coming through from Sirius. Yeah. Whew. Well, that is interesting. I'm in my own practice. I still couldn't remember what came through. of trusting the levels of how less I need to do. And it's like it could feel very scary to actually embrace the being. It's a practice of like, no matter what my mind is telling me now, I am going to choose to do this thing that if it already all happened, I would be doing that. And there are days where I just get addicted to doing and it all collapses and it's like not worth anything. And so the old way that is dying, the old self-perception, is that doer, that production machine. The becoming is the bigger you that is already helpful, that's always been helpful, that's always been whole. So thank you so much to all of you who showed up. Shana, Chris, Suzette, and Lorena, and any others who tune in. I'd love to connect and know who's resonating with this. It really inspires me to show up more. So if you watch this at a later point, comment, like, subscribe, share it with those you love. If you're wanting to cultivate more of this kind of resonance in the world, then share. Thank you. Blessing you all. Yay. See you in another version of the now. Bye.